Good morning, dear friends, and welcome you all to this 40-day series in Lent about what should we give up to bring internal and inner change in our lives. And today, the theme I have chosen to reflect with you is we should give up the spirit of impatience. Today, we are living in a world that is very fast moving, and therefore, we look for instant gratification. That means the results for our effort should come immediately because we don't have patience to wait. But that's not how God works. In the beautiful hymn, it is said, in His time, God makes everything beautiful. Not in our time, but in His time. And what is God's time? God's time is never fast, never slow. He is just on right time every time. If you look at the Bible and the main characters in the Bible, they had to wait so many years to see that the promises made by God are fulfilled. For example, in the book of Genesis, Joseph had to wait for 13 years to see God's promises fulfilled. And Abraham, after he was promised a child, he had to wait for 25 years to see it fulfilled. And Moses had to wait for 40 years. And even Jesus, he had to wait 30 years before he could launch his ministry in public. Therefore, all these biblical characters show that if God has a great thing in store, in plan for us, he will not give it away immediately. He will make us wait, because in waiting, in having a patient waiting, that exhibits love for God. That's why St. Paul, in his first letter to Corinthians, chapter 13, while enumerating the characteristics of true love, St. Paul mentions that the first characteristic of love is patient. He says, love is patient. That is the first characteristic about love. Because when we wait, it shows true love. It reveals true love. That's why in letter to the Hebrews, chapter 6, verse 15, we read that Abraham waited patiently and he received what God has promised. Many times, at the right moment, when we are ready to receive God's promises, we tend to give up. And therefore, when we give up, they won't take fulfillment. That's why let us learn to wait, because having patience shows our love. There is a very famous story told of a devotee who believed in God always, and his name was Abraham. And this man was always praying to God, was very devoted and faithful to God, and God was very pleased with him. One day, when Abraham was about to eat, he had the habit of praying before eating. And when he was about to eat, he heard his door knocked by a beggar, a very elderly man. Abraham welcomed him and offered him dinner. Before they ate, Abraham told him, you come, let's pray together. And then that beggar, an elderly man of 80 years age, he said, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. So if you want, you pray, but I don't believe in God, so I won't pray. Then Abraham said, if you don't pray, there is no place for you in my home, because I'm a believer in God. And for people like you who don't believe in God, my home doesn't have place. So you decide whether you will pray or you want me to throw you out right now. That elderly man said, since I don't believe in God, I don't believe in prayer, therefore even if you throw me out, I'm not going to pray. So Abraham, instead of giving the food, he, what he did, he caught hold of him and threw him mercilessly. And he closed his door and he started praying and he was about to eat. Then God's voice was heard. God asked him, Abraham, what are you doing? Then Abraham said, you have seen, Lord, because that guy, that beggar, he didn't want to pray. He didn't believe in you. Therefore, I think what I did is right, because my house is not a place for someone who doesn't believe in God. Then God said, you know what foolish thing you did, Abraham? This beggar, who is 80 years of age, never believed in me, but I still had patience with him all these 80 years and then gave him food. Can't you have the same patience for just a day? Then Abraham realized his mistake, and then he asked forgiveness from God. God is very, very impatient to us. And then if we can cultivate same kind of, God is very, very patient to us. And if we can cultivate the same kind of patience, the thing that we should give up in Lent is today impatience. Then that will cultivate love in our hearts. Have a very good day. Please subscribe and then we'll catch you tomorrow at the same time. Until then, take care. Bye bye.